afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. The human brain is an amazing organ. In fact, it's the most complex organ in our bodies. The average brain weighs only 3 pounds, but it is the source of most qualities that make us who we are. Unfortunately, our brains can be negatively impacted by stroke, injury, or disease. One of the most common impacts is on our speech, resulting in a language disorder known as aphasia. Aphasia is estimated to affect more than 1 million Americans, yet most of us know very little about it. To find out more, we've called on an expert from the University of Vermont Medical Center. Joining me is Karen Leary. Karen has been a medical speech-language pathologist for 20 years. She works with adults who suffered strokes and traumatic brain injuries. She also helps people who have voice problems. Well, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So what is aphasia and what causes it?
So aphasia is a language disorder. By that I mean individuals have difficulty finding words, putting them together to compose sentences, difficulty answering questions, that sort of thing. It can also affect a person's ability to understand language that they're hearing or to read and write. So talking, listening, reading, and writing, those are all aspects of language that can be impacted by stroke or traumatic brain injury.
And so about how many, is there a percentage of folks who have strokes who will have this disorder?
Good question. It's a pretty common outcome when the stroke affects the left hemisphere of the brain. I do have there's a picture of the brain. So there are different lobes in the brain. If you have a stroke in the frontal lobe of the brain, that's usually when speaking difficulties will result. If the stroke is primarily in the temporal lobe of the brain, people will have more difficulty understanding or remembering. But it's a pretty common outcome. But as you mentioned before, it's not well understood. And I thought because June is National Aphasia Awareness Month, this would be a good time to kind of spread the word and help people understand more about it.
Right. Now you have another illustration that you brought with you too that you want to talk about.
Yes, I do. Well, I thought it would be helpful just to sort of give an example of aphasia. So, so I have this picture here. Now, if you or I looked at this picture and were to describe it, we might say, well, I see a mother and father enjoying a picnic lunch while their children play. The boy is flying a kite. The girl is building a sandcastle. So we're putting words together to form grammatically complete sentences. Now, someone with aphasia would look at this picture and might say, dog, ball, no, I can't. Nice, no, I can't.
Really?
I can't. So it's not that they don't know what they're seeing. They know everything. They simply can't retrieve the words or the labels. They can't then put the words together to produce a sentence.
That's got to be hugely
frustrating.
Yes.
Very, very frustrating. And so think about how that translates to day-to-day conversation. Having difficulty asking a spouse for a cup of coffee, having trouble participating in a conversation or asking about your children. Very frustrating.
Are all cases of aphasia alike?
So there are commonalities. Again, the hallmark is difficulty finding words, but levels of severity differ. So someone may be completely nonverbal, and that would be a very severe, profound case. Others, it might be a mild problem where they're conversing and then they might stop and say, oh gosh, what's that word? And then continue on. So it can be a range.
So what does your professional work entail?
So I am a medical speech and language pathologist in my 20th year. And so I evaluate individuals after they have had strokes or traumatic brain injuries. I identify this language disorder, aphasia, and then I develop treatment programs to help them. So in the early stages of recovery, they're practicing their word-finding skills. They're learning, they're relearning grammar. For some, it's relearning how to read and write and to understand what they're hearing. So,
and can they regain these skills?
They can. There's this concept called neuroplasticity. The brain is amazing and complex, but people over time and with therapy can regain or relearn certain skills. But for many, aphasia is a chronic condition. They continue to struggle or to feel challenged.
Now, last year, on your own time, you started the Aphasia Choir, which is fascinating. Tell me about this.
Yes. So I mentioned before about aphasia resulting from damage to the left hemisphere of the brain, because in most of us, like 95% of the population, our language zone or center is in the left hemisphere, okay? So the right hemisphere of the brain is where music lives. So our ability to perceive melodies or to express ourselves in song. So I got to thinking about how, in my experience, most people with aphasia can sing fluently. In fact, when I evaluate them, I'll have them sing Happy Birthday.
Really?
And it's quite amazing. They'll sing it fluently. And that's because what they're doing is tapping into that undamaged hemisphere of the brain. And so there are actually treatment programs that draw upon that melodic element. So I got to thinking about this. I'm a singer, I'm a songwriter outside of work. I love music. And I got to thinking about how, okay, I know these folks who have trouble talking can sing. Why not get them together and have a choir? And so last year, I put the word out. I found 11 brave people who wanted to start this with me. We repeated the program again this year. 16 stroke survivors came on board with their spouses and with some speech pathology students from the University of Vermont.
Nice.
And some other volunteers. So we were a crew of 31 people. And it was quite amazing, Judy, because again, when you talk with these individuals, it's a struggle. It takes them a very long time to express themselves. But then you cue up the Beatles' Let It Be, or It Had to Be You, you know, and they're singing fluently. All mouths are moving. Now, the articulation may not be perfect, but again, they are fluent. And in fact, one man in the group, in a very effortful way, said to me, "When I sing, I feel free."
Wow.
Yeah.
So now there is some financial support from the UVM Medical Center Auxiliary.
Absolutely, yes, because I started this up last year. There are expenses. The hospital has been tremendously supportive, and I could not have done this without the auxiliary. And so I'm looking for this to be an annual program. And if there are TV viewers who have aphasia and would like to join, I'd love to have them.
That's wonderful. Now, in June, the Aphasia Choir held its first public performance, and you brought along a short clip from the concert so we could see and hear these folks.
It's actually a clip from a rehearsal, yes.
Okay.
Yes, so yes, I'd love to have you show it.
Let's take a listen.
What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just to love. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. Not just for some, but for everyone.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes, yes.
And so how is it possible that, I mean, you talked a little bit about this, but how is it possible that we can sing without being able to really form sentences and have conversations?
Yeah, it's that good old right hemisphere of the brain. And actually, music actually is a whole brain experience. But again, individuals with aphasia, they're heavily tapping into that right hemisphere. And it's been really interesting to see folks who have participated in the choir. We talk about exercising the brain. In fact, I have a slide that talks about kind of why a choir, and this will kind of answer your question a little bit more. So the idea is focusing on what they can do versus what they can't.
Right.
And it's about stimulating the brain and exercising the brain. And again, we're activating that right hemisphere. We're exercising the left hemisphere as well. There are social interaction benefits. It's fun. It helps to improve mood. And I felt it was really important that we have a sense of purpose, that it wasn't just about sort of having a singing group, like a support group, that more, okay, we have a goal. We're going to put on a concert. We're going to show the public what we can do here. We're going to educate the public about aphasia.
And so how has the choir benefited these folks?
It's incredible. There have been anecdotal reports from choir members that following the program, they feel like they are able to speak a little more easily. Some who before the choir had become socially isolated, depressed because of the communication impairment, were able to come out of their shells. They were laughing, smiling, again, that elevated mood. I had one after last year's concert. The son of one of the stroke survivors approached me and he said, "I want to thank you. My mom and dad are laughing in the kitchen again."
Oh.
So it's so much fun. I mean, I don't know about you, I love to sing, it's fun. So I think, and that was a primary goal of the group. I said, this is not about perfection, this is not about a flawless performance. Let's have fun, and that's exactly what we did.
Now, how can friends and family help individuals with aphasia communicate?
That's a great question, and that's really what I wanted to share today. I have some slides to talk about that. I said to the choir before last year's concert, I said, okay, we're going to educate the public. What do you want them to know? This is what they came up with. I put it, this is all their ideas. They said, we come from all walks of life. Our strokes didn't affect our intelligence.
That's an important point.
Yes, you don't need to talk loudly when interacting with us. Please don't leave us out of conversations. Again and again, I heard that they felt, these individuals, they felt almost offended. People thought they were stupid. They would like almost yell at them, and they wanted to say, hey, I haven't lost my intellect. I'm still me. They also wanted people to know that it takes time and effort for us to communicate. So please listen closely and be patient. They wanted people to give them time.
Right.
They said, you know, when we can't say what we're thinking, we might find other ways to express ourselves, such as writing or using gestures. And in fact, one member of the group, he would struggle. I'd give him a piece of paper and he'd be able to write to me. They also wanted people to know, please look at us and address us instead of our spouses or caregivers. They'd talk about going to the doctor's office or going somewhere, and people would talk to their spouses and not them. They want to be spoken to. They said it helps us if you don't talk too fast. Please slow down a little bit. You can ask us yes and no questions if you're having trouble understanding us, or if you want to help us get our messages across. So someone might be struggling and you might ask, is this about your family? Are you needing me to do something for you? Are you thirsty? That can really help to clarify what someone's trying to communicate.
Sure, that makes it so much easier. It's just yes or no, or nodding the head.
Yes, yes.
Now, before we go, maybe we could talk a little bit about maybe some of the symptoms of stroke, because it's, you know, important information for people to have.
Absolutely. There's an acronym, FAST. We say act fast. So if you are with a friend or loved one, and F, face, you notice a change in their face. One side gets droopy. That is a sign of possible stroke. The A in FAST stands for arm. So if you ask the person to put their arms out in front and one arm drifts downward, that can signal a stroke. The S in FAST stands for speech. So if suddenly your friend or loved one has trouble talking, that can signal stroke. And then the T stands for time. The faster you respond, the faster you call 911 and get the person to the hospital, the better.
I think people think that you know, a stroke is just sort of this immediate, maybe even violent event where the person will keel over. But that's not always the case.
No, there can be just really subtle, mild symptoms, even like balance difficulties. But so be on the watch, and if something is just off or not right, it's time to call the doctor or call 911.
If people are interested in learning more about aphasia or contacting you about joining next year's choir, which would be fabulous, what should they do?
There's a lot of information online. I would recommend people check out an aphasia website, www.aphasia.org. That's a very good resource for information. If individuals out there watching have aphasia and want to join the choir, they can call me at the hospital. My number is 847-3639. I would love to have them.
And how about advice for maybe family members who are trying to help somebody through this?
Patience, compassion, knowing that your loved one or friend is doing the best his or her can. They're doing the best they can. And just to take it a day at a time and just be patient.
And then for the rest of us to learn something more about this, because there are a lot of people who are affected in various different ways.
Yes, absolutely. So just again, if you come across someone who's having difficulty communicating, don't assume an intellectual impairment. And just give them time. Talk a little more slowly. Ask yes/no questions. Those are good techniques.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. It's a fascinating topic.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you.
And I love the choir.
Oh, great. Thank you.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.